Hello, I'm Matt Presti. We're here with Dale Pond of the Pond Research Institute. We covered a little bit in the first unit of the session, a little of what SVP is, a little bit about John Keeley, and just briefly touched on the Dynasphere. Is there anything you'd like to add into the discussion, a little more about either one of those topics for people to get a better grip about what SVP is, John Keeley, or the Dynasphere?
Well, it has occurred to me after many years of studying the Keeley work and some years into the modern paradigm that Keeley was working almost exclusively with scalar forces.
Mm-hmm.
And his Dynasphere and many of his other machines were based on the scalar forces. And these are all mind forces, so he was able to, as I said, show the link and demonstrate the link between the power of the mind or the power of a single thought as it reverberated through his mechanical devices. And for purposes of, if we take a look at just the current status of science and we've kind of built ourselves into many boxes that don't seem to have any way out. We're polluting the world, we're killing ourselves, people dying left and right because of our efforts to maintain an industrial base sufficient to support the population. Using standard Newtonian physics, we've just about reached our limit of those physics.
Mm-hmm.
They can't go much further. We've just stretched everything as far as possible. And we're on a cusp of a giant leap in understanding and wisdom and technology such that we can do a whole lot better job, and we will be doing a lot better job as soon as we can bring this paradigm forward. And the Dynasphere represents perhaps one of the few demonstratable mechanisms that'll help us learn this new paradigm of a benign and very nurturing way of doing technology, so we're not hurting ourselves, shooting ourselves in the foot every time we try and do something. And we do need that. It's a hope for mankind.
Mm-hmm.
And so for all that to happen, humanity's going to have to go through awakening of consciousness, because our consciousness now, for the most part, is buried in or founded upon the physical. We're concerned about our physical bodies, and if we can't see it or touch it or feel it, it doesn't exist. Well, that's nonsense. But that's the way we were all brought up. That's the way the science works. What we've discovered now, we are discovering now, that there's this whole other realm of science out there called scalar phenomena, scalar potential. These are the unseen causes of the physical. The physical is nothing but effects of these causative forces. And they have been addressed over the past several hundred years by many different people. Schauberger, Reichenbach, Keeley, Russell. But they didn't have enough science behind them to bring it forward. Keeley did, because he made a lot of machines that actually worked, and he demonstrated them to people. But there lacked a marketing mechanism. The people weren't yet ready to know and understand these machines and demand that they be made. You can build a factory to make stuff, but if there's no demand for them, you get nowhere. So it
seems like through the late 1880s into the 1920s that there was a period where science could have had a multitude of directions it could have gone, and it seemed to fall more into the material realm where Keeley, from what I understand, sympathetic vibration, you could have a machine that literally feels, or it's more of an organic outlook on machines themselves and how people interact with them. Where today we have a very materialistic view of machines, and like, I'm going to buy that car because it goes 0 to 60. We look very mechanically at machines today. Keeley seemed to be a man who you know, like he used the symbol, he'd draw the symbol to start the Dynasphere. To produce a machine that is actually capable of feeling or communication is a whole different realm of conscious interaction between man and machine. What do you think the forces were that drove man to look at machines as being, you know, something outside of the mind itself in such a materialistic view? It seems we had a chance to go one way, but we went the other, and Newtonian physics kind of became the staple in the universities, and it's like man had a window to look at machines in a whole new light, but instead he chose the less illuminated view of what machines are.
Well, it's a very complicated scenario to address fully. First off, man didn't really choose to do that. It was chosen for man by a few people in charge.
Exactly.
And our physical existence is predicated on our thought processes. And those who had control of the capital and the means to produce these machines and get them out into the world were fundamentally atheistic materialist people. They believed in a godless materialism. And so their creations, their factories and their monstrous production runs were all reflections of that mindset. At the same time, some of these people had megalomania in such a way that they wanted to own and control the world, and they thought they could. They had huge amounts of capital, and they were ruthless, and they turned everything to their ideals, which were to put them in power and keep them in power. So they had to shut down the knowledge for the common man that he was something other than an automaton to work 9 to 5, doing his job, creating these things, you know, for his paycheck. So they had to suppress knowledge such as Keeley and Russell had, because that empowers people.
Right.
It flat out empowers individuals, whether you put it to science or not. When you begin to realize what this universe is and who you are and your relationship to it, well, that's the ultimate freedom.
A whole different level.
Yeah, mankind becomes this great human being instead of barbaric automatons servicing these monstrous machines.
Right.
So they had to suppress it to keep their ideals intact, and they have fought it tooth and nail for hundreds and hundreds of years, including the churches. It wasn't just the capitalists. The governments need peons, and the factories need peons, and the churches need people to keep paying every month. So they all had a vested interest in it. None of them had an interest in freeing up humanity within their own minds and hearts. And that's kind of where we're standing in a cusp right now. People are beginning to realize that they are not accidents. They aren't a virus on this planet. That they are godlike beings. We create.
Purposeful.
God is a creator. We're in His image and we create. You can't create if you're slave to 9 to 5.
Right. Or just doing your job.
Or just doing your job because somebody says do your job or else.
Right.
You don't have to be locked into that dichotomy. You have a choice.
Right.